Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I, echo so much of what my colleagues have said, but I want to bring my district into this room. They're never going to be able to sit here in this audience and express just, anger that they feel that yet again we're turning our backs to them and not putting them before polluters, before billionaires, and so much more. The reality is, and Madam Chair, and this is to everyone here, it is not just us saying it. It's nonpartisan organization looking at the numbers, looking at this budget. And it is our residents of all different likes, because to me, Medicaid is nonpartisan. I have met people of all different likes and backgrounds that are dependent on Medicaid. I have met so many people that are on SNAP, Madam Chair, and for all of my colleagues to understand, you all know many of our residents survivor mode. I'm not going to here to do shaming and blaming. The reality is we have broken systems in place, and we wonder why people look at Congress and shake their heads and the approval ratings are so low. It's because we don't put them first. And so I offered 6 amendments, Madam Chair, and I hope you all seriously take them into consideration. I have no health care cuts for moms and babies. This is important. As a founder of the Congressional Mamas Caucus, when I look at over 40% of births in our country are covered by Medicaid, but that's also prenatal care, postpartum. I mean, all the different things that you see. And I say this because, again, I'm bringing my district here. We have one of the worst infant mortality crises, and I mean, look at the crisis that we have in our country, but even in my backyard. And it's because we don't have the kind of care that we have. And Medicaid is a Band-Aid, y'all. It really is. Because we do have an inhumane, cruel healthcare system that's driven by profit and greed and not about healthcare. That's why a lot of my residents don't even call it a healthcare anymore. They call it sick care, Madam Chair. And so now we're about to rip the Band-Aid off. So my amendment says, do not cut prenatal and postnatal care. Again, tackling infant mortality is nonpartisan. Every community is, again, seeing that our children are not reaching the age of 1, and there's a reason to that. And again, it's because we're not doing our job here in Congress. The other amendment, and it's super important, is no money for polluters. I want to reiterate to all of you, again, my community, the majority of them are frontline communities. We have one of the worst air qualities in the state of Michigan, in Wayne County, that I represent. And we're making people sicker, and then now we're saying, we're not going to cover the fact that, again, we've allowed corporate polluters to be unchecked. You should see the lack of enforcement, because the bills are written in a way they slap their hands, they pay a fine, it's part of doing business. But when you go to read to a third grade class in my district, and I always tell them, they ask me what my job is, and I tell them I'm trying to make sure we have clean air and how many of you have asthma. A third of the class will raise their hand, Madam Chair. A third of them. And you look at the attendance rates and so forth. The other is really important. I really believe that we need no more aid to billionaires. I'm calling it that because I think that's how you all see it. They don't need it. The corporations don't need it. Some of them have not paid federal income tax for years. They don't need it. They're going to be okay, I promise. But I still remember the first Black woman ever elected in Congress, Shirley Chisholm, say that children can't learn if they're hungry. And I'm telling you, that is very real, but also children can't learn if they're being poisoned because they don't have clean water or clean air. And so I think it's incredibly important. My other amendment expand but don't restrict Medicaid. It is important to understand the importance of what Medicaid does right now. Again, the Band-Aid that I talked about. And we try to keep it tight. I know all of us that are fighting for Medicaid and making sure that we're expanding it and making it, again, closer to something a lot more humane. But I think it's incredibly important to understand this is life-saving. I've never had this many people in my community call me, parents with special needs children, petrified. They're so scared that we're going to put Amazon and FedEx and all these other corporations before them. That's what they're afraid of. And we wonder why they're so angry. My other amendment, again, is around no money for Pentagon, because I want to talk to you all about this. In my community, I tell them, don't worry, guess what? Guess what? There is one budget that got an increase. Which budget is that? The Pentagon budget. Can't pass audits, Madam Chair. 7 audits in a row. The last audit, the last failed audit, showed that over half of the assets of the Pentagon are unaccounted for. Unaccounted for. So we have money for bombs and wars. And shame on any of my colleagues that own stocks in war manufacturing. You shouldn't even be voting on this bill. That's a conflict of interest. But Madam Chair, it's important to understand, we can't prioritize to build ships that can't float, planes that can't even fly in the rain. Trillions of dollars are going to that. And we're going to go ahead and fund it, $150 billion more dollars into talk about waste and inefficiency. It is cool for us to put more money in a budget that can't pass an audit, but we're going to go ahead and throw people off of Medicaid and SNAP. With that, Madam Chair, I yield.